Good morning. I'd like to call the Committee on Corrections and Military Veterans to order. This is Friday, March 31st, 2023, 11 a.m. We're in conference room 430. And we have one item on our agenda, House Resolution 104, requesting the relocation of all live fire training and aviation activities away from the Pu'uloa Range Training Facility. So thank you, members, for being here. I'd also like to note the presence of Representative Rose Martinez. So first up, we have in-person testimony. We have First Lieutenant Mark McDonough from the Marine Corps Base Hawaii in opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Good morning. My name is First Lieutenant McDonough. I'm the Communication Strategy and Operations Officer for Marine Corps Base Hawaii. Hopefully, members were able to look at the physical copy of our written testimony that we submitted. If not, Gunnery Sergeant Perez has copies on hand. With me today is Lieutenant Colonel Eames. He is the Future Plans Officer for the installation. He would like to deliver some verbal testimony on behalf of the command, if that's all right, Vice Chair. And then I could be here to answer any specific questions you may have on details of the written testimony or any other details you have questions on.
Okay.
Sir. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair. Appreciate your being able to invite us today. We certainly are grateful for that. Thank you for the hard work that you do every day for the members of our community. Now, we fully understand that we are so blessed and grateful to be members of this community, particularly at Eva Beach, a very special place to us all, a place that I've been many times, as well as Mark and Gunnery Sergeant. Many Marines have both live in that area and, of course, work and train at that range. And gentlemen, ladies, I can tell you that we have a mutual interest, a shared interest in reducing noise and reducing impact to the community. You know, we understand that loud noises are often undesirable, and we are excited about the opportunity to work together with our community to mitigate that, to make it better. And with that said, we'd just like to explore areas of mutual benefit. And again, this is an important member of the community. I'm sure you'll hear from other community members, and we absolutely value those concerns and want to take them and deal with them appropriately, reasonably, and responsibly, and be responsible members of the community. Now, the CO submitted a letter, which I believe you have, Chair and Vice Chair. I'll just pull some highlights from there. The Marine Corps has operated this facility in Pu'uloa for over 100 years, since the early 1900s. This is where our Marines conduct their annual rifle qualifications up to 500 yards, and particular to the Marine Corps, every Marine does that. It doesn't depend on your MOS. Every Marine is a rifleman first, and that's why that skill is so critical to Marines. And PRTF is the only place in Hawaii where this training can be accomplished. It's irreplaceable. About 7,000 Marines a year, most of them based over there in Kaneohe, train at that PRTF range. But others train there as well. Other government agencies and services, to include our local, state, and federal law enforcement, also train there. Now, we've worked in close partnership with our community and elected officials over the years to mitigate impacts, particularly noise. Again, we recognize that noise is often undesirable. And because of that, we've worked continually with our community over the years to mitigate those impacts, to solve those problems, to include changing the direction of those loudspeakers, to include notifying the community when we change hours, when it's required. We've permanently changed the daily timing of those rifle ranges, and in many other instances, we've worked with our community. And we have been, and we remain committed to continue that close cooperation and coordination in order to, so again, solve those problems and mitigate noise as much as possible while maintaining the ability of our Marines to conduct that necessary training. And we look forward to continued cooperation with our friends and neighbors in Eva Beach and the legislators and those elected officials with whom we have worked together for decades. We want to continue doing that. Just want to close with some personal notes from the CO, Colonel Kuparakis. He asked me to share, again, our close cooperation with the community and thankfulness to this committee. We're not in opposition per se to a resolution at all. In fact, we want to support the community and support mitigation of noise impacts. And so we just humbly ask you to consider some of the suggested language that we've put forward. And also, we thank you for your support both in the past and in the future. Obviously, the Marine Corps is, federally funded, and you're, very You're a critical stakeholder. You're very important to maintaining the level of funding that we need to accomplish our mission, and so we're very grateful for your support with federal funding for the Marine Corps. We also want to remain compatible and communicative with our community. Always open to comments, always open to suggestions that like we have been in the past. We will continue to do that in the future. And we do that by continuing to ensure that we're environmentally responsible, that we listen to our community members, and we mitigate those impacts as much as possible. So appreciate your help in making this resolution useful to the entire community, both off-base and on-base, because in reality, we are one. We live together, we work together, we train together, and so we certainly appreciate. With that, I'll turn it back over to Mark for some details, and again, appreciate your time.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, I want to dig just a little bit into some specifics because there's information I think the committee should consider within this situation. First off is noise. This is a firing range, and we have been here for over 100 years. But the reality is we had a community grow up around us, and now we have neighbors that live in close proximity to a firing range. What I'd like to highlight is, with this facility, we're continually trying to modernize and trying to mitigate impacts as much as possible. There are further mitigations that are available for a facility like this that we simply don't have yet. Right now, the Marine Corps is building ranges in Guam, and one of the mitigations that they have used is sound dampening barriers along the length of the range. That is an option for mitigation at Pu'uloa. However, the Marine Corps in Hawaii does not have funding for that at this moment. We have not been funded for that because that would likely come through a MILCON, which would be the U.S. Congress. So, for members of the committee, advocation for that would be greatly appreciated because that would allow the Marine Corps to further work with the community, mitigate noise impacts to our neighbors, like we really do want to. Lead. This has been a big topic of conversation in the media as well as with the community at the neighborhood boards and things like that. I want to be clear that the reality is the presence of lead in impact berms of a firing range are not cause for concern on their own. What is cause for concern is that lead leaving those impact berms and then moving into the surrounding environment. We are federally required to ensure that that does not take place. Right now, there are no tests that I have seen, whether from an outside organization, from the Marine Corps, or from the Department of Health, that shows that lead has moved from our firing range into the surrounding community. However, the Marine Corps is extremely concerned with shoreline erosion, as many people in Hawaii are. We're extremely concerned about it at PRTF. Shoreline erosion is what would cause the migration of lead from the facility into the community and into the ocean. Right now, we have already completed the movement of Foxtrot Range berms 40 meters away from the ocean. This action was conducted in collaboration with Department of Health. We showed them our plans to get their opinion on it, and they concurred that that would be effective in ensuring that no lead left Foxtrot Range. And I speak about Foxtrot Range just because along this facility, that is the furthest to the east. And that is what we have seen is closest in proximity to areas that are being affected by shoreline erosion. And so to ensure the safety of the community and ensure the operability of the facility, we've moved Foxtrot back. Now, there are 3 further ranges that the Marine Corps plans to move from the shoreline in the short future. That will come through a MILCON project. Those are also short distance ranges. They will be moved 40 meters back from the shoreline, parallel to Foxtrot's new position. We are certain that this will ensure that no lead leaves the facility into the surrounding community. And we are committed to finding further mitigations for the rest of the facility, which we are confident are secure at this time. And lastly, it was brought up a lot in the resolution, and I want to say, our sniper training at Pu'uloa, I actually don't believe that our sniper training has nearly any impact on the surrounding community. The majority of our sniper training, or we use suppressors, or what other people would call as silencers. So the noise from those rifles are not the same as what people truly do here, which is our annual rifle qualification. That's what I understand these people are hearing and rightly complaining about. And for that, we would like to pursue these mitigations, as I've stated before. There were a number of points made against the sniper training. The reality is that is the only 1,000-yard known distance training area in Hawaii, It is incredibly important to not only the Marine Corps, but the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. We all use it. The SDZs, which are known as the safety angles from that facility, the Marine Corps is a subject matter expert on range safety. We are fully confident in the safety parameters that we have at Pulo Range Training Facility. That includes the facility itself, the infrastructure, the training limitations we put on our Marines, their actions, and then the safety mitigations used throughout the training to ensure that not only the Marines or other service members on those ranges remain safe, but especially the surrounding community, We checked into this. There has never been an instance where a staff member of PRTF or a member of the community has reported to the range that we have affected the outside community with our fire, our physical fire, which I think the thought of it scares a lot of people. There's no instance on our records where that took place. And so we are incredibly confident in the safety procedures. I tried to keep that as summarized as possible while showing the Marine Corps' position. We truly care about the community. We truly care about working with our neighbors to mitigate impacts. We have been a long-term member of the EVA community, and we would like that to remain, because we have real-world training that needs to be conducted for our Marines to ensure we're ready to go to war on behalf of this nation and go and fight and ensure contingency does not affect the homeland. Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, that's all I have at this time. If you have questions for me, I could speak to specifics.
Thank you very much. Okay, next we have Alexander Gauss from the EVA Neighborhood Board in support.
Thank you all. Didn't realize I was going to go first, so yeah. So yeah, I'm Dr. Alexander Gauss. I'm a member of the EVA Neighborhood Board. So I'm actually here speaking to you, not in addition to my own behalf. I'm actually representing my constituents, and I can tell you that the overwhelming majority of the complaints or the issues that are brought to me, bar none, this is the single most common complaint. I get it on a weekly, if not daily basis, about issues with noise. Now with the lead contamination, a more recent thing, and the potential leaching into water. So the movement of these berms and things can help, but it does not take away from the fact that a lot of these contaminants leach and they can get into the water, and we have parks nearby, we have big communities, right? And so I think you add that, and then we have issues of where the range is currently established, it actually blocked off Fort Weaver Road, which once connected the Eva Beach community to Capilina Beach Homes, and there was a bus route there. It's an important evacuation route for tsunamis. If not, we all get funneled up Fort Weaver Road. I'm a part of that community, so I say we. And so it's a culmination of issues that are synergistic and that have really culminated with, I think, this recent push for this bill, this resolution, to really see something change. Right? It's not compatible with the current community. When this was originally built, as our member here just stated, that it was built 100 years ago. This community didn't exist. It's simply not compatible with the amount of people. Now we're talking about creating 600 DHHL homes directly adjacent to this firing range, right? And so this is going to add to the incompatibility of this infrastructure there. And I understand that currently it's the only 1,000-meter known range. So there are unknown distant ranges around the island. It's only 1,000, but there are other properties. I'm a federal employee, so I understand that a lot of times it's when there's a will, there's a way. And so what we're doing with this resolution is trying to give the will, right? I understand they work for the Marines, and that's their job to come here and defend it. But really, when we look at the bigger picture, it's just it's a fact that it's just incompatible. The neighborhood has grown all up around it, and it doesn't work. And so for all the issues that I've mentioned, as far as there's sound issues, there's lead issues, there's recreational issues. That area in front in the ocean cannot be used for recreation. The loudspeakers start at 6:30, sometimes 6 o'clock to announce things. And so while they talk about mitigation, you cannot simply mitigate this. This is an incompatibility issue that as the government, as the Marines, what they need to do is find another area to create this range. I mean, it's basically, let's be clear, it is an open stretch of 1,000 meters. Right, and so to find an area where they can do that, where they're not directly in the center of a community, is really, I think, it's on their shoulders to find that. It's probably, I know it's the only range in Hawaii that is based in the center of a community, and it might be to my knowledge, it's the only one in the nation. I've tried to do some research on that. So I want to put the case for the people, that's how the people feel. There's also some issues of equity and how this is a blue collar neighborhood. It's now becoming, the complexity of the neighborhood has changed. It's becoming a lot more affluent, but it still has that reputation. So there's an equity issue where people feel like they're being taken advantage of, right? And so consider that as well. And I strongly urge the passing of this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. I just also like to note the presence of Representative Alcos. Thanks for joining us. Next we have Liam Chin in support.
Chair, Vice Chair, thank you. Honored to be here. I want to thank Representative Martinez for having the courage to introduce this resolution along with several other representatives. I'd also like to point out there's a version almost identical in the Senate as well that has bipartisan support. As my colleague said, I'm an Eva Beach resident. This range is unprecedented. In the state of Hawaii, there is nothing similar to this. Picture a shooting range in the middle of a densely populated neighborhood. I get knocked out of bed at 6:30 a.m. every morning with a loudspeaker, gunfire. Every day I go down to that beach. The berms they're talking about moving, let me clarify that quickly. They're gonna move what's effectively 10% of the range back. The two much bigger ranges, A and B, they've explicitly said we're not moving those berms back. Guess where range A and B are? Right next to Pulo Park. If children are playing there, you could throw a ball and it hits the berm right there. We're smart enough to know that with strong winds, trade winds hitting there, rain, and coastal erosion, this lead does not stay contained. Moving it 40 meters back is sweeping crumbs under the carpet. It is not a long-term solution. I have family that have served in the military. I support military readiness. Here's the simple fact. This is a dirt field with no infrastructure in it. There are other options on the island. Schofield is massive. I also want to point out that the sniper range, which is now in here, until 2011 was in K-Bay. They relocated it. So if you can relocate a range like that, do it again. Find another location. There are a lot of options. The other point that needs to be made is that by its own standards, this range would not be allowed right now. It has so many parallels to Red Hill. When Red Hill was built, there was no regard for the health and safety of the community around it. Red Hill would never be allowed today to put these tanks right above an aquifer. Similarly, this range, you would never say, yeah, this isn't okay. This would pass impact assessments on the community and the environment to stick a range in the middle of a community right up to the shoreline. It touches the beach. 70 times the legal limit of lead has been found on the berms on the backside, which are touching the beach, right? And this is just basic initial testing. Again, right where children play. My point is, this range would be disallowed now. It is fundamentally incompatible with the community. You cannot fix it. We're not asking to shut down. We're not asking them to not train. We're saying find another location on the island, find somewhere in Schofield, go back to K-Bay, find another location. Heck, they just built a brand new shooting range in Guam, state of the art, that has all the types of mitigations that we're talking about in the community. So there's options out there. The federal government has deep pockets. The military has a ton of resources. This is a losing issue. You cannot fix the sound of loud, heavy artillery gunfire. You cannot fix the accumulation of thousands of tons of lead that are coming into these berms right next to a park. Lastly, the DHHL proposed construction of 600 homes immediately adjacent to the park. Something's got to break there. One of those have to go, because you cannot put 600 Native Hawaiian families right next to this toxic waste dump of a site. And I want to just close by saying this. When I hear from the military, we need this, what I hear is the same thing in Red Hill. I'm sorry, we need this, therefore we need to endanger the health and safety of the community because we need this. When they could be saying, I'm sorry, actually this is just an inconvenience for the military to move it. For us, it's not an inconvenience, this is our lives, right? This is our lives. So the military has options. We respectfully request they exercise the option to relocate the range into an area of the island that is away from dense neighborhoods. And finally, I wanted to talk to the equity issue. Would this range be allowed in Lanikai or Manoa? Would they allow a shooting range in the middle of Lanikai or Manoa? No, they wouldn't. So why should we as Eva residents have to tolerate that? Why should we be knocked out of bed at 5:30 a.m. to gunfire and a loudspeaker and be afraid of our keiki playing on the beach because they will ingest lead? So let's just stop there and say there's schools nearby, there's churches, there's people. It's time for a change. It's time to move it. And we respectfully ask them to request a congressional appropriation to relocate the range to Schofield, K-Bay, or somewhere else on the island or in the region. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Radhika Jeet in support.
Hi, thank you, Chair and Vice Chair, for having this meeting and allowing us to come and speak. I'm an EVA resident. I live about 200 to 300 meters away from the range. I want to make it clear we're not asking for the range to be shut down. We're just asking for it to be moved. I think it's disingenuous to say that it can't be moved when the military controls about 20% of Oahu and obviously across the nation. And there's plenty of space for this away from our neighborhood where keiki play. I'm woken up, at 6 a.m. by the loudspeaker, also with the incessant loud shooting that causes deep stress and other medical issues that I'm sure you read in the resolution. Personally, last year I suffered one of those medical incidences when I had a late-term pregnancy loss. And this is noted in the resolution that this can occur from deep stress, from listening to loud noise, such as I do every day. My doctor has told me if I am blessed enough to get pregnant again, do not swim in that water, do not play in that sand, do not sit in that sand, because it will affect your pregnancy. So similar to Red Hill, the range is poisoning the air and water and the land. The military has ample resources to relocate this range, and we don't want to move it is not reason enough to poison the people of EVA and the people that go and play in that park. So I'm asking, please, that you listen to the residents and the neighbors in EVA and please move the range. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Michael Plowman in support.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Michael Plowman. I'm a lifelong Eva Beach resident, also retired naval aviator. Got my sharpshooter qual on that range many years ago. My graduate work was in aviation safety and at the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California. So I'd like to talk just a little bit about the compatibility between this range and the Honolulu International Airport traffic. This range could not be built today. The FAA would not allow it. They would not let it be put in that location. I've got a couple of photos here, and if I may. It's given that this range is incompatible with the surrounding neighborhoods, and the neighborhood board just passed a resolution saying as much. And as I said, the FAA would never allow this to be built nowadays, and the main reason is it's only 2 miles from the landing threshold at Daniel Inouye International Airport. When an aircraft on a precision approach is on final approach, it's on a 3-degree glide path, which means they're only 300 feet per mile. So at 2 miles, they're about 800 feet, passing right in front of the range. Pardon me. Passing right in front of the range if they're going to runway 8 right. It wouldn't take much of a lift in the muzzle to be aiming right at an aircraft that's well within your weapons range. The approach to runway 8 left goes right over the north part of the range, and the approach to runway 8 right goes right out in front of the range. This morning I woke up and I saw UPS 747 at about 600 feet going right in front of the range. They hadn't started shooting yet, but when they are, it creates a risk. Now, why Guam? There's a photo of Guam. The Marines, as has been explained here, the Marines just built a range in northern Guam. But when they first did it, and they first did the EIS, they wanted to put the range in this area, which if you look, it's very similar to the juxtaposition between Pu'uloa Range and the Honolulu Range. It's very similar. They couldn't do it. They had to abandon that plan because the FAA said the risk could not be mitigated. They said that in fact, I have a quick quote. Conclusion: for the reasons noted above, the Department of the Navy determined that the preliminary alternative does not satisfy the initial screening criterion associated with sufficient airspace. The vertical hazard associated with this alternative would extend to 3,000 feet. And again, aircraft are well below 1,000 feet when they pass over or in front of the range. I have requested from Naval Facilities Engineering Command the FAA study that rejected the Guam plan, and I haven't even gotten a response. So I think you can see that this is just incompatible just from an aviation standpoint. And if I may respond to just a couple of the things that Lieutenant McDonough said. He said it's the only place that they can do known 500-yard training, the annual training for the Marines. Forgetting the sniper range, 1,000 yards, they had a 500-yard known distance range at Kaneohe. And I don't know, about 10 years ago, they built an unknown distance range at Kaneohe. When they had one to use at Schofield, they had been using it at Schofield. They moved their sniper range to Eva Beach. They eliminated the opportunity for their 500-yard known distance range in Kaneohe, and then it severely impacted the load at PRTF in Pu'uloa because they moved all that annual training to Eva Beach. And when they did the environmental impact statement for that new range they built in Kaneohe, eliminating that annual training there, the only evaluation they did to the impact of Eva Beach was to say that all of that annual training would go to PRTF. They didn't evaluate the impacts on the environment or the community. In respect for time, I'd just like to say I am firmly in favor of this resolution, and I believe the Marines can and will maintain readiness in another location that's more compatible with the community and air traffic. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next we have Sandy Ward on Zoom. In support.
Aloha mai kako. Can you hear me? Just a quick check.
Yes, we can hear you.
I've actually, as I listened to the testimony of my esteemed neighbors, I'm just trying to get a handle on my emotions. So forgive me, just a moment here. I've lived and worked in the Ewamoku for half my life. I'm a retired school teacher, and I run a community nonprofit that is focused on the restoration of what you see behind me, Pu'uloa. For the last 4 years, I've worked with 27 schools from K to college. And yesterday I had students from Kapolei High School who regularly go to Pu'uloa Beach Park. And we talked about this. I want to be able to look these young people in the eye and say that our beloved legislators and our military have their safety and their health and the health of their waters and their food systems as the #1 priority. Right now, I'm not sure. This resolution goes a long way if passed, and I am testifying in full support of that. It goes a long way to making things right and meeting Article 11 of Hawaii's Constitution that says that we will protect the natural resources of Hawaii for the present and future generations. I honor our military. I know that they work hard to protect us, and we work with a battalion of Marines right at Kapapapuhi up the street from this firing range. They're helping us restore a Hawaiian fish pond. And I have complete faith that they would be able to relocate this firing range quickly and easily, perhaps even indoors, and definitely on a military base. Military bases make up 25% of this island. I'm a retired science teacher. It's disingenuous to say that the lead is going to stay there because it's already been shown to be leaching. It rains. It just rained hard in Eva. I know how heavy metal toxicity moves from the land where it's been accumulating, as the Marine group said, for 100 years. Just because something's been happening for 100 years, just because the Red Hill tanks were put over our drinking water aquifer, does not make it right. And again, when you work with high school students, they get right to the point. So I care about the noise because I live right next door to the firing range in Capilina. But I'm not testifying about noise. I'm testifying about lead toxicity near our keiki, near our waters, near an incredibly abundant fishing area. And I know that the military cares about our safety. So Homeland Security is food and water security. It is not lead toxicity. It is not excuses. I know that the military can build cities in a matter of months. I've seen them build housing complexes in Schofield in a matter of months. I'm begging of you to support this resolution, which is a first step in requiring the military to move the Pu'uloa firing range. And I'm begging the military members present to cooperate in any way they can with the wishes of the people and the youth of the Ewamoku. We have had enough. We have been ignored long enough. Our waters and our lands have been polluted long enough. And committee members, I thank you. My testimony was not as detailed as some of those who are testifying in support of this. It's emotional, and I am emotional. And I am trusting you to do the right thing. So mahalo nui for your consideration and for allowing me to testify.
Thank you. We also have some late registered testifiers in person. Matthew Macayo Villanueva in support.
Aloha kako, Makaio Villanueva, no wai alua mai au, kena hone au ma wai anai. I just wanted to come and support the EVA community and this particular bill with the reminder that we're tired of the military presence over here. We recognize the illegal occupation of the U.S. military, and we see all the ways that they have destroyed our aina, and this place that we love, all of our cultural and natural resources, and we're done. We're sick of it, right? And I mean, I understand, like, shooting is a perishable skill, right? And we need to practice, but I cannot support the U.S. military being here. We should be able to protect our own land, you know. And that's just for another conversation. But just for environmental reasons, right? I stand behind the people of Eva and say, Aole, they need to move. Mahalo.
Thank you. We also have Mikiala Lidstone.
Aloha. My name is Mikiala Lidstone. I'm the Executive Director of the Ulua'e Learning Center. We serve over 300 elementary and middle school students every year through our out-of-school programs in the Moku of Eva. We grow rooted and engaged children and youth. We grow their love and their engagement in the place they live by taking them to sites in their community to care for those places and to learn the history and stories of the place they call home. We do this so they become contributing members and want to be problem solvers for their community. For all the years that we've been running programs, Pu'uloa Beach Park has been one of our favorite places to visit. We hold Keiki Warrior fitness classes there. We swim in the ocean, we play in the sand, we use the showers, we walk on the grass, and we've always felt safe there. And it's there that we feel the power of place. This past July, I learned of the lead contamination at the Pu'uloa shooting range, and I ceased all our visits to Pu'uloa Beach Park. I don't gamble with the health and well-being of our children and my staff. It broke my heart to do this. It broke the hearts of my staff, and it especially broke the hearts of my young students. The fact that the shooting range is still operational, even after the Surfrider study found lead contamination, is heartless to me. When you learn that your environment is poisonous and know your neighboring environment is a place where hundreds of children frequent, I would think you would stop operation and move. There's other places you could go. I support HR 104 to relocate Pu'uloa Shooting Range. Mahalo.
Thank you. Next we have Alan Quavito. Is that right? Okay. In support.
Support, sir. My name is Alan Cuvito. First, I'd like to say that I'm retired military of 25 years, and I do respect the mission of the Marines and what they do for us. I was raised in Neville Beach, and since, I don't know, I can remember, I was shooting Manini, Palani, in and around that area. Till today, we still dive in that area. That's just a month ago, we was in the water. So, and just last month, I found out that this, I guess, in and around that area is contaminated. So it's kind of disturbing to me. But for the Marines, they say they need 500 yards of for their range. Yeah. Schofield goes out to 1,000 meters. 1,000 meters equals 1,093 yards. So that's double of what the Marines would need. That's also an operating base. So that's not a base that's around a civilian community. So you won't have this anti-gun range. I don't know what you call it, but so and then the military just recently. They had bases like Hickam and Pearl Harbor. Worldwide, what they did was they joined these bases, yeah, and it's a worldwide operation that they did. I cannot see why they cannot take two small firing ranges and consolidate it into one on Schofield, which has the land and which has an current operating process right now. It's just a matter of fiscal appropriations to request for them to build an extension of the Schofield range. And from what I heard, that Kaneohe has a space also. There was a person at the neighborhood board was talking about he needed qualifications for hunting. I'm an avid hunter that hunts on Lanai and Molokai. You can easily estimate your ballistics with 100 yards target. And if you don't feel comfortable ethically, just don't shoot. There was another person that mentioned about their qualifications. So if they have military qualifications that they gotta keep up with, they can simply go to Schofield because they have military ID. What else? Oh, one of the biggest things is the Marines mentioned they have 7,000 qualifications that go through this range. Okay. You times that by every one of them shooting about 100 rounds, times 30 years, and I don't know what excavation they did in the past year. So that equals to 21 million pieces of bullets that's not encased. So every time it rains, you got a seepage from these unencased bullets that's in the dirt. Now that they just mentioned 100 years, times that by 100 years. That's 70 million pieces of bullets if they've never done any type of excavation and cleanup. So, but I used to work for Unitech Environmental. We've shipped tons of soil contaminated with lead. So I know for a fact that lead seeps out into the soil. And lastly, I know they need the qualifications. forgot what word I'm using, but the need versus location. That again, all they gotta do is ask for appropriations for them to relocate. And even with their training, they gotta ask just fiscal, that we need a little bit more money. This is federal government now. Their pockets are endless, it's bottomless. They can get whatever funding they need to relocate this. I think it's need versus preference. So, thank you for letting me testify.
Thank you. And we have Karen Luke testifying in support.
My name is Karen Luke. I live a mile away from the firing range. When I first moved to Eva Beach, life was good. The front yard was kiave bushes. I had to use an o'o stick to be able to plant trees, and we could hardly hear the firing range. And then in the last 25 years, things have changed drastically. The last 10 years, it's begun, the noise from the firing range has begun to affect my health. Early in the morning, you hear this pinging as they test the PA system. Anyone trespassing in their waters, you can hear them warning them to get out of the water or walking the beach. You're in a live firing range. This has been most harmful to my health. And besides my health, yeah, I'm getting old, I'm more fragile, I might be more sensitive to this, but what's it doing to our children? The firing range has caused active shooter lockdowns in our schools, and this has got to be really harmful to our children too. The gun laws are not sufficient elsewhere. I really enjoy Hawaii's approach, and to have the firing range move would be very helpful to the health of our people in Eva Beach. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the registered testifiers I have. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to testify on this measure? Seeing none, are there any testifiers on Zoom? On Zoom? Seeing none. Members, questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Vice.
Representative.
Not so much a question as more of a statement to the military. On Kauai, we have a firing range right next to PMRF. The community, the hunters needed it, security, police, even the PMRF needed that for training. But we had to shut it down because of the same reasons that are being talked about today. I think most of these, this activity has to move indoors or on other property. But here in Hawaii, we're so limited with space, it's gonna be tough, but this resolution is going to be the start of the conversation that needs to be taken very seriously. But we do support you, and we know that the security of our nation is of top priority. But thank you for being here.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Representative Alcos or Martinez, this is your district. If you would like to ask any questions, None? Okay, members, we're gonna recess. Oh, you have a question? Okay, go ahead.
For the military, in the resolution, as it's written, it says that in 2011, that there wasn't an environmental assessment done, and that in accordance with NEPA and CATX, it was, the requirements were fulfilled. But just to clarify, an environmental assessment was never conducted?
So under NEPA, it was determined that a CATX was sufficient to change from 600 yards to 1,000 yards because the change wasn't all that extensive. We under NEPA, we do try to, we don't try, we effectively follow the regulations and the law. And in this specific instance of the change in distance, it was determined that a CATX was what was required.
historically, for the larger area, has any environmental assessments been conducted?
Yes, ma'am. So 2019, we did the shoreline stabilization environmental assessment. A lot of this issue is connected to that, actually. And you know, I talked about the Marine Corps' concern with shoreline erosion. This has been a long-term concern of ours.
Aside from the shoreline erosion, like the larger property historically from 100 years ago, within that time, for the full impact, not just the shoreline impact or not just the expansion impact?
That's a great question. I'd have to check, being that, you know, it was established so long ago. I'm not sure if NEPA existed then, but I can get back to you with that information.
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you.
Yes.
I'd respond to that as well, with some additional information.
Thank you. Any other questions, members? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna recess for decision making. Recess. Calling back to order the Committee on Corrections, Military, and Veterans. For House Resolution 104, the recommendation from the Vice Chair is to pass out a House Draft 1. We're going to take the amendments from the U.S. Marine Corps from the last paragraph, be it further resolved, just to ensure that it gets to the right location or the right people, individuals and agencies. But I'd really like to move this along for further discussion, and also technical amendments requested by HMSO. So, any questions or concerns, members? Okay, Chair, please take the vote.
Okay, members are voting on HR 104. Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Representative Ganadin?
Aye.
Ichiyama, excuse Morikawa?
Aye.
Poi Poi?
Aye.
Takayama?
Aye.
Souza?
Aye.
Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
All right, thank you, members. We're adjourned.